Before we get into today's topic, we wanted to announce our gratitude giveaway, courtesy of Soulful Society member and longtime listener Kenny Fitzgerald and his company, Tech Systems. You have the chance to win a free year-long subscription to the app Calm. Thank you, Kenny. You legend. We are so excited. All you have to do to win is leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify by the end of the month. Or if you've already kindly left us a review in the past, please get a friend to leave a review and DM us a screenshot of their review. You have until March 31st to be entered to win. We will announce the winner who will be picked at random on our April 7th episode. Happy reviewing! Welcome back, Soulful Society, to Soulful of Wellness,
the multi-generational podcast brought to you by two functional imperfectionists
and certified coaches
who deliver tips to live your most authentic and balanced life.
Rudeness is contagious in a similar way to a virus. How fitting. When experiencing a rude encounter, our brain perceives it like a threat. And once we've tuned into this low-level threat, we're more likely to notice it around us and therefore more likely to display rude behavior ourselves.
Today, we're talking about rudeness and its impact on you, me, and our wellness. We'll walk you through what rude behavior actually is, what our evolutionary response to it is, and how you can take steps to mitigate its negative effects.
By the end of today's episode, you'll be armed with 7 tools to be less impacted by microaggressions when you encounter them. Break the rudeness cycle and start spreading kindness in your world.
Hello, listeners. If you would be so kind, please take a moment to follow, rate, and review Soulful of Wellness on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening today. That way you will never miss a week of wellness goodness.
We love getting feedback and suggestions, so please write a review or send a quick email, sfowpodcast@gmail.com, or DM us on Instagram, like @content by Carla Cooked It. She DM'd us to say, I want to relax, discover myself, do healthy things, understand things I didn't even believe were real, like alignment, connection with nature, etc. I'm glad I came across your podcast. Thanks for putting it out there for people like me who didn't even know we were looking for it.
I love the accidental discovery, like a little hidden treasure. Weren't even looking for it, found it, love it.
So serendipitous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Today, we are talking about rudeness.
Why you gotta be so rude? Why? Why?
I have no response.
All right, go ahead.
Rudeness is a low-level intensity display of disrespect or incivility. It's often ambiguous, and oftentimes malice isn't even necessarily intended. But our brains, those wonderful, beautiful, complicated brains, interpret rudeness as a form of microaggression and react accordingly.
That makes sense.
It does, because those brains are always trying to protect us.
Oh, yes.
They're like, oh, wait, threat. I see a threat. I got it. Hold on. I'm in action mode.
Yep.
When we are party to or even just witness acts of rudeness, it activates the part of our brain that's responsible for detecting rudeness, which is an evolutionary-based response. And the brain sees this potentially dangerous event happening near us and gets us ready for the threat and what's to come.
As if we needed more stress in our lives. Like, what I'm hearing based on this research is that you experience a stress response when you experience rudeness, and even more interestingly enough, when you witness rudeness.
Yes, we'll get
Mm.
to that in just a moment as we're going to talk more about what scientists have discovered in these studies of rudeness, rude behaviors, and its impact on people. It's really, really interesting.
So, when someone acts with aggression, it's typically a response behavior, but rudeness sometimes comes out of nowhere. So, it's disconnected from our usual explanation of where negative behaviors come from. I like to think about it in my personal world and experience as someone being rude to me is really a projection of their own experience. And more likely than not, it's not personal.
Yeah.
I remember learning at Georgetown. Remember, we were given that example about crazy people in the car, like people with road rage, and really how you just have to have compassion for them and maybe laugh it off because they are in their own world. Because we're all experiencing the same level of traffic, but their response is so heightened and dramatic.
So seemingly disproportionate to the stimulus or how we're perceiving, as you said, the same stimulus,
Mm-hmm.
but we see other people with this over the top, dramatic, what seems to be an overreaction, but it's more than just the actual stimulus of the traffic we're sitting in. It's the culmination of all the things that have happened recently in that person's life,
Yeah.
all coming together and
Mm-hmm.
basically just triggering.
Which is interesting because if you just spread a little bit of kindness, it is a chain reaction. If you're ordering your latte from a barista and you just say something kind or you're in a good mood or you pretend to be, that could make that person's day. And then they're going to be even nicer to the next customer and so on and so forth.
True and scientifically proven. You're sort of jumping ahead to one of our strategies later. That's okay. That's a little teaser for you. We'll explain why that actually works. Before we get to that, let's go into a little bit of the history so you can understand why your brain is having the reaction it's having. Rudeness is undeniably a stressor to our brains, and our brains are telling our bodies to get ready because it wants to be safe, and there is very likely a physical threat to come imminently. So, these acts of rudeness affect our health and our well being because emotionally, it's upsetting to us, and our brain's trying to prepare us for either fight or flight. And these are small things. We're not talking somebody physically attacking you or even threatening to physically attack you. These are just small, everyday acts of rudeness that our brain is saying, uh-oh, I've seen this before. I'm going to get ready for this. We don't even need to be the recipient of it. Just witnessing one person's rudeness to another person that we have no part of can have the same impact on us.
I bet you that's because our mirror neurons start firing in that instant.
Oh,
Are you familiar with mirror neurons?
mean, enough to say, "Oh my gosh, that makes total sense," but not enough to explain how that works or what our brains think that's doing for us.
Right. Well, it's similar to when you're experiencing empathy. Those mirror neurons fire and you're able to put yourself in that person's shoes. And maybe like you're passionate about justice. So your brain is just firing off like, whoa, 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 threat, threat, threat is like very near.
That makes complete sense.
So, experiencing or witnessing a rude behavior can trigger a toxic spiral. We know this. We've
Mhm.
experienced this. We tend to ruminate about our rude interactions. Definitely. Sometimes
Yes.
maybe for hours on end, or you can't shake it off after an experience like that.
You cannot shake it off, and it's almost like the more you try to or talk yourself out of it or tell yourself to let it go, it wasn't that big a deal, it almost creates more energy around it and makes it a bigger deal in your brain because you're just ruminating. You're just cycling through the events of what happened
Mhm.
and keeping them bouncing around inside of you, building energy around them.
Mm. Yeah. So, I mean, don't beat yourself up because I feel like that's a normal human reaction. Sometimes it's really, really hard to get out of a thought spiral like that, especially if your brain's job is to protect you. It makes total sense, right? It's trying to fight for justice. You didn't deserve that.
Brains store the effects of these microaggressions for up to a week.
Mm.
And you can have a reaction when they build on each other and they come together almost like the way PTSD, when a trigger happens, the brain reacts because it's been traumatized in the past.
Mhm.
These microaggressions for up to a week after even the smallest interaction
Mm.
can trigger a reaction in people, kind of like what you were just describing in the traffic.
Yeah, remember the story of when JC and I were at a stoplight and a bicyclist
Yes.
thought that we cut him off when we were just pulling out of our parallel parking spot onto a really busy road? He stopped us. He pedaled back. He turned around into oncoming traffic in the wrong direction to approach us at a stoplight we were at and slammed his fist on the hood of our car with such force that it created a massive dent. And he was threatening us and getting in our face.
Which is actual physical
Right,
violence.
right.
It wasn't to your person, but it was to your property, and your brain is absolutely going to go on alert because your brain's saying, "Wait, he slammed the car, but he could very well slam your head next."
Yeah. It was really scary. And after we called the police and tried to deal with it, I feel like our first reaction was, we need to share this. Like, we wanted to talk to friends and family about it. And yeah, it was hard to let go of for a few weeks, for sure.
Well, I talked to you that night, so it was several hours later, and you
Oh,
were
yeah.
still on that adrenaline high. You were still, like, a little shaky about it.
Yeah. Our brain sends messages to our body and we have a physiological reaction. So it's crazy that that can happen even a week later.
Our brain is reacting to these microaggressions and taking them personally because interactions, not even as big as what you described, even something like the person's walking into Starbucks and holding the door, you think they're going to hold it for you when they actually drop it basically in your face. They might not have even noticed you or seen you, but your brain takes it personally. And
Mm-hmm.
your brain says, "This is an attack on my identity. This person is very clearly saying that I'm not important enough to be treated better."
Interesting.
This is all happening on a less than conscious level. Conscious you has the perspective to say, "There's no way that could have been personal. I don't know that person. He doesn't know me. Why would he drop the door in my face?"
Mm-hmm.
But it's really upsetting because your neurons are saying this is a personal affront.
Right. And it's interesting that experiencing or witnessing rude behavior is contagious. The fact
Mhm.
that it can change our mindset and cause us to be more rude. I mean, that's interesting, but it really does make a lot of sense.
I'd like to think I'm not going to let myself become ruder because I've encountered more acts of rudeness lately. I'd like to think that I can rise above it, but our brains are telling us different things. If you get information after the fact, even getting a perfectly good explanation will not mitigate any of the effects of the rudeness. However, if you get the explanation up front, if, for example, I was having dinner with you and I got there a minute early while Doug was still parking the car, and I said, "Hey, Kaylin, just a heads up. Doug has had a crappy week. Today in particular is just a horrible, horrible day. I don't have time to go into the details, but trust me, if he's grumpy, if he seems abrupt, just know it's not about you. It's him. Give him grace today because things are rough." Then, if he's rude to you, but with that framing up front, you are able to be dismissive of the behaviors and detach and depersonalize them so you don't have the same negative impacts on your wellness because you have already framed for your mind that this has nothing to do with you.
Hmm.
Isn't that interesting?
I see. That is really interesting. I get that too.
Yeah,
You
it's
frame, I like the way you put that. You said you frame it in
mhm.
your own mind to protect your wellness. It's
Right.
like, oh, it's like you're putting on your armor. So you're like, I'm not gonna let this impact me. Your brain already has the armor on.
When you knew in advance, you opened up this box,
Yeah.
and so any behavior that fell into that category, you just shuttled it right into that box,
Yeah.
and it's in its own compartment. It doesn't impact the rest of you. But if he had done the exact same things and then when he got up to go to the bathroom later, I gave you the same information, it wouldn't have the same effect. The damage has already been done. I think that's crazy, but explains a lot.
Yeah.
Also interesting, we subconsciously remember where we've encountered previous microaggressions.
Yes. Yes. That's wild.
Absolutely. We prime our neuropathways to be activated in certain settings, certain situations, around certain people. Our brains are ready to defend us. So therefore, we're more likely to really be impacted by that microaggression. Also, there's no immunity. You can't build up resistance. So it's not like you can say, I know this person's rude. He's rude every time I see him. What did we say when we were kids? Like, I'm rubber,
Oh.
you're glue.
There you go. Yeah.
Whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you. That does not work with these acts of rudeness.
Well, yeah, because why would you want to hang out with someone repeatedly who just has that quality about them?
Well, if you had to, let's say it's the guy in the office next to you. And so you brace yourself and you're like, I know he's going to be rude. I'm ready for it. We don't seem to get used to rudeness or build resiliency. The robust effects of rude behavior are observed even when we're regularly exposed to them. Case in point, people who work in customer service. It's known that you call customer service to complain or to basically yell at them, so to speak, about something that went wrong. The people who work in customer service were studied because they're like, oh, this is great. We can see, do these people build up a resistance to it? And that's how they can stay in this job where they know they're basically getting verbally beat up every day they go to work? No, they are impacted no matter how long they've been in that position or how many times they've been exposed to this behavior.
I commend you. If you are in customer service, I just give you like 500 million gold stars. Like, I commend you so much. That is such a challenging job. And to expose yourself to that level of negativity consistently, yeah, that'll wear anyone down. That's really challenging. And like, I just think about, as we're talking about rudeness, this idea of energy, like your vibe attracts your tribe and similar things. And we've talked about vampires on the podcast before and how energy really matters. And so if you're interacting with someone giving off this negativity, it's going to wear you down. And it's interesting how it'll stick with you on a cellular level to the point where you'll have that reaction returning to the same space.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So that accounts for some of those times when you feel that buzzing or that tightness starting up in your body before you're even consciously aware. And then you have to evaluate and say, wait, what's going on? Why do I feel like this? I don't like this feeling. What's causing this feeling? And then through observation and paying attention, you realize, oh my gosh, wait, I know why. Because the last time I was here, XYZ, my body's stressed out and getting ready.
So now that we've learned a little bit more about the science behind rude behavior and its impact on your wellness, let's give you those tools to build up your arsenal to maintain your wellness when you're facing adversity, such as rude behavior. What can you do to avoid and stop the rudeness virus? Here's what experts suggest. Tool number 1, acknowledge people and express appreciation. So gratitude has the opposite effect of rudeness. I love that. Gratitude is like a rudeness killer. And like there's so many, many benefits for gratitude. So here's another one.
Yeah, the little antidote.
Yes, exactly. The little antidote. I think about Shrek when they were in the second movie, the fairy godmother, and they're in her lair and there's all those potions. Just grab your gratitude antidote. That's what that is.
Yes.
So say hello, thank you, all the other niceties, a small act of kindness can have a really big impact and increase performance and start changing the tenor of things. I mean, you've experienced this. You can feel it.
Step 2 is something Caitlin also alluded to earlier, but we're going to go into a little bit more detail or at least give an example of how you can practice this. So the tool is practice the skill of perspective taking. Do exercises that help you broaden your perspective to help mitigate the narrowing of attention that's caused by rudeness. When you encounter a rude behavior, it uses up part of the processing part of your brain, and it takes up a bunch of basically the working capacity of your brain. So by practicing mind broadening activities like perspective taking, you can teach your brain to reopen those pathways. So for example, try taking the perspective of another person and think about the world from his or her point of view.
Tool number 3, ask questions. Asking for more information weakens the effect of rudeness and works to counter the narrowing of attention. It'll broaden the way you're thinking about the problem and the situation.
Tool number 4, don't let rude behavior fester. When someone does something rude and you internalize it, negativity festers and resentment builds. Use some of your wellness tools, maybe the name it to tame it, or journal about the encounter to get the emotions of the interaction out of your head, down onto paper, not spiraling inside of you.
Always a good one. Let it out. Let it out.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5, avoid rude people. So when you can, right? So you can't skip all the interactions with rude people. Like Kit mentioned earlier, there may be someone at work who's just always there. But do your best to avoid or limit interactions when you can. Skip the happy hour or the long lunch. Like, protect your energy if you know you're going to leave upset because of a certain person. Set those boundaries, babe.
Tool number 6, apologize. If you find yourself being even a little bit rude, catch yourself, stop it, nip it in the bud, apologize. Apologies and seeking forgiveness are very important for mental health. Be nicer in the future. Let niceness be contagious instead of rudeness.
So, are we talking about if you're just having a bad day and you're finding yourself being rude? Or are we saying like someone's rudeness has impacted you, therefore making like you caught the rudeness virus from someone? Like,
Exactly.
Apologize.
Yes. And maybe you just do the smallest thing, but don't just be like, oh, that was kind of rude of me. Ugh, I shouldn't do that. Actually say, I'm so sorry I dropped that door. Let me get that for you.
Okay, got it. Own it.
Like, it doesn't have to be a big deal.
Right.
Basically, you're signaling to the other person, you matter.
Oh,
You're important.
I love that.
So you're going to stop the virus there, because where their brain's going, this is an attack. She thinks we're not important enough to hold the door for. You're saying, no, I don't think that. I apologize. And then hold the door for them, and then they can calm down and not go off and do something to someone else.
So there is one virus you can stop, and that's the rudeness virus.
Yes.
Tool number 7, believe in decency. If you go around thinking everyone's out to get you, you're always going to be on the defensive, and rudeness is prone to follow you. Thoughts lead to emotions, which lead to behaviors. So start with the thoughts. Start with the baseline assumption that people generally have good intentions.
And then we have a bonus tool. Smile. A smile can go a long way to counteracting rudeness. Remind yourself that even the kindest people have hard days. Instead of internalizing it or taking it personally, tell yourself, this isn't about me. To help dismiss random rude behavior you encounter or that you simply witness, assume the person is particularly rushed or stressed or tired or hungry or whatever is going on for that person. The important part is that it has, and I repeat, nothing to do with you.
Nothing to do with you. It ain't personal. Well, there is science behind smiling and how it can impact your mood and completely shift it.
Yes.
Yeah. So I feel like this could be a bonus tool for a lot of wellness situations. Just smile. The soulful takeaway from today's episode would be to spread kindness, stop the rudeness virus, and give people a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, and give yourself grace if you're still harping over an encounter that happened a week ago.
Yeah, I think awareness is the only thing that could possibly help you release it. If you realize, oh, I wasn't holding on to it on purpose, my brain's holding on to it to try to protect me. I know logically it wasn't about me. I'm going to leave this behind.
Intentionality behind it. Yeah. So first comes awareness, then comes intentionality, behavior change, and action. Thank you so much for joining us again for another week of wellness goodness. If you hadn't already, please give us 5 stars and leave us a review so the algorithm can help other people find us and experience more wellness in their lives. Spread the joy.
If you have a friend suffering ill effects from encountering rudeness, please share this episode with them. Until next week, peace, love, and light.
Peace, love, and light. The Soulful of Wellness hosts are certified health and wellness coaches. This podcast is intended to inform and entertain listeners on their wellness journey. This podcast is meant to enhance, not replace, listeners' care from doctors, therapists, or other medical providers. So full of